I didn't lose just money before I got it all back. I lost my ease. I lost the little calm I carry to bed at night. People keep asking me the same two questions. How did he get into my safe? And why on earth did I hand a stranger my house key? The truth answered both, loud and clear, later. Back then, all I saw was a clean tie, a steady hand, and a man who said the right things at the right time. Here is how he walked through my front door, and how I helped him without knowing it. My name is Linda May. I'm 63, born and raised in Memphis, now living in a small house with a lemon tree out front and a porch that creaks like an old hymn. I'm a grandmother, a retired nurse, and the kind of woman who labels flour and sugar even though I can tell them apart with my eyes closed. I know where everything goes. My life runs on small habits that hold me steady. Coffee spoon in the top drawer left side, bills in the blue folder, spare reading glasses in the little dish shaped like a fish. Order is my peace. The first time I met him, the heat was sitting heavy on the parking lot like a wet towel. I'd just come out of the grocery store with a loaf of cornbread, a sack of peaches, and a carton of eggs. He was right there at the door, neat as a Sunday morning. Close shave, white shirt, tie with tiny blue dots. Not a wrinkle on him. "Let me get that for you, ma'am," he said, and he held the door open like the world was a stage and I was the show. I don't swoon for small manners. I've seen men hold a door with one hand and a lie with the other. But he didn't overdo it. He didn't push. He just walked me to my car, set my bags down gentle like they were sleeping babies, and noticed my broken wiper blade. "Your wiper's catching," he said. "If the arm is bent, it'll scratch glass. You want me to bend it back?" I should have said, "No, thank you." But he didn't touch a thing until I nodded. Then he fixed it quick and clean. "My daddy taught me," he said, smiling without showing teeth. "Leave a place better than you found it." He told me his name, Nate, and waited to see if I'd offer mine. I did. He didn't try to sell me anything, didn't ask for my number, didn't do that fast talking so many men do when they're building a little ladder up to your trust. He just tipped his head and said, "You have a good day, Miss Linda May," like we'd known each other from church and were meeting again in the produce aisle. The second time I saw him, I was at the pharmacy. The third time, at the post office. Then on a Tuesday, he came up my walk with a thermos of soup and said his sister made too much chicken noodle. He left it on the porch rail and stepped back like I was a skittish cat. "No pressure," he said. "It's hot. Just thought I'd share." A man can chase you. Nate drifted. That's different. He asked small questions and remembered the answers. He learned my porch plant's name, Martin, because I talk to him when I water. He remembered my grandson's birthday because I said I had to bake cupcakes. When I told him my back hurt, he showed up the next day with a little heating pad, still in the package. "Nothing fancy," he said. "My friend works nights at the dollar store." He had stories that sounded like they had a weight on them. "Some paperwork mess," he said one afternoon, eyes on his shoes. "Bad partners. House tied up in court. I'm staying with a buddy for now." He said it like he didn't want my pity, the way proud folks talk when they're just trying to keep their head above water. If you've ever worked a hospital night shift, you know the voice. We sat on my porch with mint tea sweating in the glasses. I told him about my mama who kept sugar in the coffee can and grocery money in a recipe book. "People look for things in places that scream value," Mama used to say. "They don't look where life is ordinary," I laughed and told him Mama's habit had rubbed off on me. I said it too easy, too light. "Like what?" he asked softly. Not leaning in, not pushing, just letting the question hang like a shirt on a line. "Oh, silly stuff," I said, waving my hand. "Spare key here, spare key there." "Spare key?" He said it like a father would say, "Spare tire," like it was only a word. "Not to the house," I said quick. "Lord, no, I mean my safe key." I chuckled at my own nerves. "I keep it in a cookbook, taped right inside the spine." "Which one?" "The most boring one on the shelf, baby. The old church book with all the cream of mushroom casseroles. Ain't nobody stealing Jell-O salad." I smiled, and he smiled back, and the mint tea slid sweat down the glass. If you want to know the truth, I liked the way he looked at things. He didn't stare at my picture frames like a man trying to count my money. He noticed the small things, how I stack plates by size, how the lemons fall under the tree and the squirrels leave them alone. He said order makes a home sing. He said his mama raised him to clean the sink no matter whose sink it is. He said people can be poor in cash and rich in care. When I start to trust, I test with a small thing. That's my habit. One Sunday, I told him I'd left a bucket out back. I asked if he could carry it up the steps. He did, and set it down exactly where I point. No peeking, no poking. Another day, I gave him a jar of my peach jam and said, "Tell me if it's too sweet." He brought the jar back washed with a note that said, "Perfect with toast." A small thing, but it talked big. So when he came by one evening with a suitcase that looked like it had seen too much sidewalk and eyes that looked worse, I listened. He stood on my porch, shoulders low, words slow. "Ms. Linda May, I'm ashamed to ask this," he said. "My buddy's place is full. His cousin moved in with 2 kids. I just need a night or 2 under a roof that ain't a car roof. I'll pay you back, or I'll mow. I'll fix things. I thought of my husband, gone these many years, and how he never let a man sleep outside if there was a couch and a blanket to be had. I thought of the verse old folks say, "You never know when you're entertaining an angel." Then I thought of the way Nate put my bags in the trunk that first day without denting a peach, and the way he put the soup on the porch rail and stayed back. I don't hand out trust for sport, but I am not made of stone. "The spare key is under the mat," I said, "just for tonight. Maybe tomorrow. I'll be with my sister in Memphis for 2 days. I'll leave instructions on the counter. Don't worry about the alarm. I'll set the guest code." I heard my voice and thought, "You sound like a woman on a step she can't see." He didn't step in. He didn't even look past my shoulder. He nodded like a man bowing to a church mother. "Thank you," he said, and there was a shine in his eyes like somebody had polished them. I wrote a list for him in my big block letters. "Feed Martin 2 ice cubes. Don't touch the thermostat after 10. Garbage goes out Wednesday." I left a quilt on the couch and a towel by the bathroom door. I cooked a small pot of red beans and rice, the kind that tastes better the next day. I moved through my rooms, checking windows and latches like I always do. My hands knew the path without telling my head. On the kitchen shelf, the cookbook stood straight. Joy of Cooking, Miss Louise's Southern Pies, the church one with the green cover, and an old spiral notebook with my mama's handwriting. I touched the spines like I was counting children. On a normal day, I don't even think about that safe key, tucked where everyday life hides it. But that night, my fingers lingered on the church book before I pulled away. Habit is a lullaby. It can sing you to safety. It can sing you to sleep. Before dawn, I locked the front door behind me and rolled my suitcase down the porch steps. The street was dark and quiet. Somewhere, a dog barked twice and then thought better of it. I tucked the house key under the mat and sent Nate a short text. "Guest code ready. Coffee in the tin. Be kind to my lemon tree." He wrote back a single line. "I will treat your home like it's my own." On the bus, the city slid past like old film. I should have slept. Instead, I watched the sun rise over billboards and steeples and thought about manners and stories and how a person can make themselves fit into your life so gently you don't feel the push. I told myself I was doing a good deed. I told myself the world is hard and we keep each other soft. I didn't know then which small thing he would change. I didn't know which small thing would give him away. I only knew this. When I locked my door that morning, I wasn't just leaving my house. I was stepping out of the safe place my habits had built for me and letting a stranger stand inside. By the time the bus rolled past the river, my phone started buzzing like a hornet in a jar. First, it was the bank. We're seeing unusual activity, cash withdrawals followed by a deposit to a private box. Did you authorize that? I said no, and my voice came out flatter than the road. 2 minutes later, my neighbor Ms. Renee texted, "Baby, your kitchen light was on most of the night. Looked like somebody rearranged your cookbooks. Maybe I'm seeing things." I was not seeing things. I bought a return ticket for the next bus before the sun finished standing up. When I opened my front door, the air felt organized. Not normal organized, me organized, but hotel organized. That's the first sign most folks miss. Your own house suddenly looks like a picture of itself. The couch pillows were the right colors, but standing too tall. The throw blanket was folded like a store display, not the loose square I always make so it breathes. My lemon tree in the window had been turned a few inches away from the sun. Anyone who knows that tree knows he leans toward morning light, like a hush toward a prayer. I set my bag down and listened. Houses talk if you're quiet. The fridge hummed steady. The clock in the hall clicked soft. Somewhere, a pipe knocked once and then kept its peace. No broken glass, no open drawers. Thieves in movies toss rooms. Thieves who know you study you first. They put your life back almost right. Almost is where the truth lives. I walked straight to the kitchen shelf. My line of books, Joy of Cooking, Miss Louise's Southern Pies, the church cookbook with the pea green cover, was neat. Too neat. I keep Joy on the left, Pies on the right, church book in the middle so I can grab it quick for cornbread. Now Pies sat left, Joy right, and the church book wore a new straightness at the spine, like someone had smoothed it down with careful hands. I pulled the church book. Page 146 has the funeral potato recipe. I slid my thumb under the spine where a strip of clear tape hides a pocket I made myself years ago. It felt loose, tired, like a bandage someone peeled and stuck back wrong. Empty. I didn't panic. I sat. Panic wastes the first 10 minutes, and the first 10 minutes are where the best clues live. I brewed coffee because hot helps me think. When I reached for the grinder, my hand paused. I always keep it on fine because I like my coffee bold. The dial rested on medium. That's not a big thing to you. It's a billboard to me. The trash can was next. If a person lives in your house for even a night, their trail falls into the bin. I tied the bag and dumped it onto a spread of old newspaper. There it was, small as a match but loud as thunder. A wrinkled receipt from the chain pharmacy 2 blocks over. Name on loyalty account, Nathaniel J. Cole. Bottle of water, pack of gum, phone charger. Timestamp 2:31 a.m. So he'd been awake and walking. I checked the safe. It's behind a false panel in the hall closet. Not fancy, but good enough for a woman who lives modest and saves for bad weather. The dial looked clean, too clean. Someone had wiped it. The inside was worse. The envelope marked "Storm" was thin as a lie. My Black Day money, my don't call the kids money, was gone. I let myself cry, not like a movie, but like a kettle, a short, hard whistle that stops when you lift it. Then I cleaned my face and did what the nurse in me always did on the ward. Find the pattern, not the drama. Pattern, Number 1, the thermostat. I keep it on 75 in the day, 72 at night. No holds. Now a little clock icon glowed, meaning someone had set a hold until. Who sets a hold when they're a guest? Someone who doesn't want to wake up cold at 3 a.m. while counting other people's dollars. I pressed 2 buttons and saw a name in the app I never use but my grandson installed. Guest, Nate's iPhone. My stomach dropped and then steadied. Careless people think tech erases behind them. It doesn't. It takes notes. Pattern, number 2, the router. I don't know much about routers, but I know who does. I called my grandson Miles, who speaks fluent settings. He logged in remote with the password he made me write on a sticky note and said, "Nana, there's a device connected last night called Nate iPhone." He used the guest network for 40 minutes around 2:40 a.m. Also, looks like somebody paired the living room AC to a new account. He sent me a screenshot and told me to breathe. I didn't realize I'd stopped. Pattern, number 3, water. Night thieves get thirsty. I checked my glasses. I always put the clean ones lip down on the towel after they dry. One sat lip up. It held a half moon of water and the faintest print of a finger. I couldn't see but could feel. Just a ghost of oil. I took a photo. It made me feel foolish and steady at the same time. I called the bank back, told them to flag every bill that had passed through my safe this month by serial number. "Ms. May, that's unusual," the man said. "So is a stranger drinking from my glass?" I said. He got quiet and started typing. I filed a police report, not with tears but with notes. The officer on the phone was kind. He said they'd send someone by. I asked for a case number and wrote it in my blue folder. I almost called Nate. My thumb hovered over his name. Then I put the phone down. A person who can smile at you while peeling your life open is not someone you warn. You do not teach a snake to hear the whistle. Instead, I took stock of what I had. A changed grinder, a wrong-way lemon tree, a receipt, Wi-Fi logs, thermostat history, a neighbor who saw a light, and a safe that felt like a mouth after the last cookie. It wasn't enough to get a confession. It was enough to build a net. Here's what I did. I went to the bank and asked to rent a small box. I told the manager my story the way I'd tell a patient the plan before a hard procedure. Slow, plain, with a place for questions. He listened like a man who's heard too many tales and still wants to be surprised by decency. "We can help mark currency," he said. "We can notify you if any of it shows up." We did more than that, but I won't hand a playbook to the next thief reading this. Back home, I filled an envelope that looked fat and honest. Inside, I put a stack of bills the bank had recorded and a tiny tracker the size of a button. Miles slid across my table like we were in a spy movie. "It'll ping your phone if it moves," he said. We taped the tracker flat so it wouldn't rattle. We tucked the envelope into the safe like a hen settling into straw. Next, we placed eyes where mine couldn't be. Ms. Renee, bless her nosy heart, has a doorbell camera and no shame about pointing it toward my porch for safety. Miles set up a small camera behind the cookbooks, peeking through the little empty dark between Joy and the church book's tired spine. If someone's hand went there again, the hand would tell on the man. Then came the part people always skip when they hear stories like this, the waiting and the acting normal. I cleaned the counters. I fed Martin 2 ice cubes and turned him back toward the sun. I baked a small pan of cornbread because I needed the house to smell like something besides fear. I put the church cookbook back where it shouldn't be, on the right of Joy, as Nate had left it. Because people return to their own arrangements, it soothes them. I wanted him soothed. At dusk, I typed a message and stared at it for a long beat before I hit send. Headed back to my sister overnight after all. House is free if you still need it. Key under the mat like before. Be safe. My finger shook, not from fear, from anger turned into work. Almost right away, he replied. You're an angel, he wrote. I'll be in and out, won't touch a thing. My throat made a sound I didn't plan. People will tell you the devil's in the details. Sometimes he's in the timing. He answered too quick, like a man who already had his shoes on. We didn't leave. We moved next door. Ms. Renee made coffee strong as gossip, and we watched my porch through her doorbell app. Miles sat with his laptop open, eyes on a map that showed a quiet blinking dot, the tracker asleep in my safe like a thing that dreams. The police car parked 2 blocks down with the lights off. I gave the officer on stakeout a plate of cornbread, and he said he wasn't supposed to eat on duty, and then he ate anyway. Around midnight, my living room window lit up. A figure slid across the shade. His height, his careful shoulders. He used my code. He moved like a man confident in the path. He paused at the kitchen shelf. Even through a camera, you could feel the way his fingers slowed, the way his mind smiled. He reached for the church book. The little camera clicked a heartbeat I heard in my own ears. He didn't go to the safe right away. That told me something important. This wasn't a panic pass. This was a man at home with the wrong idea of home. He poured water. He stood at my sink and drank from my glass. He wiped it with the dish towel like that made it kind. He turned the lemon tree another inch, and I could have laughed if I hadn't wanted to cry. Then he went to the closet. He pulled the panel, worked the dial. The tracker woke up. Ping. Miles pointed at the screen. He's got it. The dot started to move. He tucked the envelope into his jacket. He closed everything gentle, like he was tucking a child. He put my church book back exactly his way. He left. We waited. Sometimes justice is fast. More often it walks. He took the path to the street, past my mailbox with the tiny dent on the left where the snowplow kissed it last winter. He kept his head low. He did not look up at the dark car on the corner. He turned right and right again, like a man who knows the cameras. He did not know ours. When the door of my house clicked and the light went out, Ms. Renee touched my hand. You okay, baby? She whispered. No, I said, but I'm ready. I sat there with my neighbor on one side and my grandson on the other, and a quiet police radio muttering in the hall. And I thought about the first day in the parking lot, about cornbread and mint tea, and how small kindness can be a doorway if you don't watch who's walking through. I thought about my mama's voice. People look where value screams, hide it where life hums. The tracker dot crept toward a place I didn't recognize. Miles zoomed the map in until street names came into focus. He tilted the screen so I could see. You know that block, Nana? He asked. I did not. But one name flashed on my phone a second later that made my jaw clench. A text from a number saved as D Keys, the same number that had pinged Nate earlier that week with a simple note now. Box open at 3. I didn't answer. I didn't breathe. I just watched the little dot keep moving, and I let my questions line up the way I line up my spoons, one after the other, waiting for their place. By sunset, I was watching him through glass, listening to a bank lobby hum while my phone whispered proof into my hand. But hours before that, one small mistake in my own kitchen almost unraveled everything I'd set up, and he would have slipped right back into the world wearing my trust, like a borrowed coat. I didn't let that happen. Not after what he did in the dark. Not after the way he turned my lemon tree. We waited out the night at Ms. Renee's place, coffee strong as a scolding. My grandson Miles bent over his laptop like a mechanic under a hood. The little tracker dot slept in my safe until it didn't. At 12:41 a.m., it blinked awake and began to crawl across the map like a silverfish. Hall closet, living room, front door. Our doorbell camera caught his shoulders and the careful way he moved, not like a thief, but like a man who thinks a room owes him quiet. He poured water at my sink, put the glass down lip up, is kind of neat, and paused at the kitchen shelf. The tiny camera Miles hid between Joy of Cooking and the pea-green church book showed fingers, calm as prayer, pulling the spine. He didn't rush. He set the book back, his way, then drifted to the closet and opened what wasn't his. Ping. The dot slid into his jacket. He left gentle, like guilt tiptoeing. The street swallowed him. The dot turned right, then right again. Men who plan their sins practice their turns, and idled near a strip of closed shops. It parked itself a few blocks past the laundromat behind a payday loan store. Hiding place, Miles murmured, tapping the screen. The dot slept there until dawn turned the sky the color of a bruise healing. At 7:30 in the morning, my phone buzzed with a message from the same number that had once flashed, "Box at 3." Only one word now. "On?" I didn't answer. A minute later, Nate texted, "Just sweet enough to rot a tooth." "You make it safe to your sister. I can swing by later and water your plant." Plant. Singular. He never called Martin by his name when he wanted something. That's how you know what matters to a person, what they name and what they don't. I thumbed back, "Still away. Thank you for looking in." I added a heart I didn't feel. It's a strange thing, wearing a mask inside your own skin. At 9:05, he came again. The porch camera caught him bending for the mat like a man who expected Grace to stay where he left it. He let himself in, tested the air, as if guilt has a smell, and went straight to the shelf. His hand hovered and then backed away. He'd already taken what he came for. He wasn't greedy. He was careful. That's worse. The careful kind don't trip over furniture. They trip over themselves. He made coffee. I know because he changed my grinder back to fine, trying to erase a fingerprint without knowing it was already recorded. He left a note on the counter, neat block letters on my monogram notepad. "Thank you for trusting me, Nate." He thought the thank you would relax the picture. All it did was talk. The ink was mine, and not ordinary. Blue-black from the fountain pen my church ladies gave me when I retired. It leaves a tiny feather at the edge of the stroke on this cheap pad. I slid the note into a plastic sleeve. Miles smiled without teeth. "That's a gift," he said. At 11, I went home. People think you should never step back into the scene. Sometimes you must, to make sure the curtain falls where you need it. I unlocked my door, counted my breaths, 5 in, 5 out, and walked straight to the kitchen. The note sat exactly where a conscience ought to sit, in plain view. I didn't move it. I did move one thing, the church cookbook, a whisper to tell me if a breeze passed. I slid its tail out over the edge of the shelf by a thumb's width. I turned Martin back toward the sun. I reset the thermostat, then set a new hold to end at 2:50 p.m. A quiet little clock that would ping me if someone touched it. The bank manager had called me at 10 to say their side was ready. The marked bills were logged. The serial numbers sat waiting in a system that would whisper to security if they appeared at a box, a teller, or a night drop. The officer on the case, a woman with steady eyes named Diaz, swung by to check our cameras and smiled at the tiny lens behind my cookbooks like it was a well-trained child. "We'll have 2 plain clothes at the branch and 1 car nearby," she said. "We don't know D. Keys yet, but we want whoever he is to feel like the day is ordinary." "Ordinary," I said. "I can do ordinary." I made a sandwich. I wiped the counters. I folded the towel and left it a little crooked, the way I always do so it dries. I wrote myself a list that said nothing but felt like armor. Bake cornbread, water lemon, breathe. Then I did something I hadn't done in days. I sat with my own quiet. I thought about that first day, door held open like a stage, and about the little ways a man can study your life without ever asking for a map. I let myself be mad, not loud, just the way a pot simmers, steady and useful. At 1:30, the tracker dot woke and began to move again. The path arced across streets. I don't walk much, then curve toward a place I know too well, the branch where I've banked for 20 years. My breath snagged on my ribs, then let go. "He's going early," Miles said. "Of course he is," I answered. "He likes to be the first in and the last out of his own story." Officer Diaz texted, "We see him." 10 minutes later. "He's talking to someone in the lobby. Tall gray ball cap, clipboard." Another text. "Cap guy heads to safety deposit hall." And then, "Your dot just entered." My phone gave one more tiny warning, an alert from my thermostat app. Hold changed, 74° until 3 LO PM. I almost laughed. He had thumbed my comfort one last time on his way out, like a signature only I could read. It's a strange kind of grace when the thing that makes a person feel in control is the very thread you pull. We drove to the bank slow, not to get in the way. My hands rested on my purse. My eyes stayed on the door. The lobby is always cool and smells faintly of ink and carpet glue. A TV over in the corner talks money like weather. Normal, so normal, it made my teeth ache. A man in a gray cap with a clipboard, D keys, whether that was his name or a joke, walked out of the safe deposit corridor with the kind of calm that doesn't come from church. He nodded at the teller like he owned the clock. He didn't look around because he had taught himself not to. Nate stepped out after him, jacket zipped, face arranged into a nothing. He tucked a white envelope deeper, and I saw the corner of my button-sized tracker press a small round truth against the paper. Before anything else happened, before anyone said, "Sir," before the officer in a plain suit moved his foot, I felt it, that tiny lift inside when a long stitch pulls tight. The camera above the counter blinked. The teller smiled the smile they teach when something important is about to land soft. Officer Diaz's partner spoke like he was asking the time. "Gentlemen," he said, and his voice filled the cool room. "Can we talk?" Nate glanced up, and for 1 second his eyes found mine. Not shock, not shame, just a quick flat look like a door slamming behind a hallway you don't get to see. The gray cap man turned his clipboard toward the officer as if paper could turn into armor. The teller reached under the counter where a little light lives. And then a thing happened that I didn't plan for. My phone lit with a new message from an unknown number. "We know about the cookbooks. Next time, don't be cute." I stared at the screen. Ms. Renee leaned in. Miles reached for it, his brow folding like fresh laundry. The number didn't match D keys. It didn't match Nate. It was new, quiet as a knife. The message didn't sound like a man tripping over his own neatness. It sounded like a room with more doors than I'd counted. Officer Diaz caught my eye across the lobby and lifted a hand. Wait. Her partner was already talking, guiding, gently separating cap from jacket, jacket from envelope, envelope from the bright, ordinary air. I heard a soft, professional sentence. "We have reason to believe," and then the world narrowed to paper and serial numbers, and how truth can sit small until the moment someone holds it to light. I did not move. I did not speak. I did the thing I do best. I watched. I watched the way Nate's jaw set like a drawer you have to slam to make it stay. I watched the gray cap man pretend his clipboard was suddenly interesting reading. I watched the teller's hands, careful as a seamstress, lift bills and lay them down. And I watched the little round bump under the envelope flap, my tiny button, do the work I asked it to do. Outside, a siren far off complained, and then fell quiet. Inside, the bank hummed its same cool hum. Somewhere in that sound, a question stood up. If Nate was only the hand, whose was the mouth that had just texted me from the dark? That was the thing I hadn't counted on. The shadow behind the neat man, the voice that knew my shelf like it had been there long before his tie. And as Officer Diaz gave me the smallest nod, "Now come closer," another thought settled next to the first. A house can be studied from a porch, but a life gets mapped from stories you tell without knowing someone's taking notes. I stepped forward, not to finish anything, but to begin the part where you say the truth out loud. My lemon tree would be turning its leaves to catch the afternoon light by now. My towel at home would be drying with that little crooked fold I always leave. And on my phone, one sentence from a stranger glowed like a fuse, waiting to show me what else had been standing in my kitchen this whole time. People think a story ends when the cuffs click. Cuffs only close hands. They don't close rooms or phones or the voice that texted me from the dark. We know about the cookbooks. Next time, don't be cute. Officer Diaz lifted 2 fingers. Don't respond, while her partner eased Nate and the man in the gray cap toward a quiet corner of the bank. The teller spread the bills like quilt squares. The cereals matched mine in a neat, guilty row. My little tracker sat round and honest under the flap, like a small truth, with a pulse. It should have felt finished. Instead, that new message burned in my hand like a coal I refused to drop. At the station, a small interview room smelled of coffee and air freshener. Diaz set her notebook down and spoke in that steady way nurses and good cops have when they're pulling a thorn with no need to make it hurt more than it must. "Ms. May, who else knows about your cookbook habit?" she asked. I opened my mouth to say no one, and then my mind did that click it does when a puzzle piece turns over. Not a person, a piece of paper, a magnet on my fridge from last winter. Safe seniors, home check, free smoke alarms and kitchen safety tips, with a number I'd called when the church bulletin said the city had a program. 2 volunteers in bright vests and clean boots came by to test my alarms, peek at the stove, audit for trip hazards. One asked for water and walked through my kitchen slow, kind of admiring. My grandma had that same green church cookbook, he'd said, tapping the spine with a single finger like it was a memory and not a map. He wore a gray cap, clipboard too. My stomach sank in a new way. I told Diaz everything, the vests, the clipboard, the compliment, how I'd signed a form with a QR code that made me feel modern and foolish at the same time. Diaz wrote and wrote. "We'll check the permit list," she said. "Real programs keep records. Fake ones leave paper with no signatures." She turned her laptop toward me. "We imaged Nate's phone," she said. "Here." A chat thread rolled by. D keys texting times and simple instructions. Park south side. Do not touch the thermostat again. Another thread labeled choir had numbers instead of names. Little orders that looked like grocery lists if you didn't know fear has bullet points. In that thread, the unknown number, the one that had just scolded me, appeared 5 times in the last month with notes like kitchen, habits okay, cookbooks confirmed, and one that made my palms go damp. Older woman likes order. Choir? I asked. Diaz shrugged one shoulder. Rings call themselves cutesy things. Choir, team, family. D Keys is likely Dennis or Deacon Keys. We'll see. The unknown number is masked through an app, but it's tied to a VoIP account registered last fall. We'll need a warrant for the real owner. What matters is this. They scout. Someone stood in your kitchen before Nate ever smiled at you in a parking lot. I closed my eyes and saw the vest, the clipboard, the finger on the green spine. I tasted mint tea and felt the old safe key like a ghost pressing my palm. I wasn't just robbed by a neat tie. I'd been circled. I opened my phone and scrolled to a photo I'd taken the day the safe seniors men left. Martin catching winter light, my counter clean, the books lined up. I'd sent it to my sister with a caption. House past the check, cornbread from page 146 tonight. The green cover was clear as a street sign. Even if I hadn't said the page, I'd said the shelf. Sometimes you don't hand people keys, you hand them a map and a flashlight. Diaz touched the screen with her pen tip. Keep that. It's evidence and a lesson, she said, not unkindly. Then she tapped the message from the unknown number on my phone. We'll answer this, she added, but not as you. What do you want to say? I asked. That you're spooked and want it over. That you'll leave what they think they want where they tell you. People who hold strings can't resist tugging them twice. She crafted a reply like a fishing knot. I don't want trouble. I'll put the cookbook on the porch and be done. No police. We hit send and watched the three little dots dance, stop, dance again, like a person arguing with a mirror. The answer came. Tonight, 9 p.m., leave the green one, light off. The green one, I repeated, and the room went a little bit colder. He didn't guess. No, Diaz said. He remembers. We set the second net the way you set a table for company you don't want. Miles swapped the green church book for a twin from a thrift store, same color, different church, and glued a thin strip of foil inside the spine so it would scream on a metal detector without anyone knowing why. He slid a tag so small it made my eyes water under the back cover. If the book moved more than 20 feet, I'd get a quiet bell on my phone. Diaz placed 2 officers in a sedan down the block, one in a delivery truck that sat broken down near my corner, hazard lights blinking like a sleepy eye. I went home and made my porch look like it had been left by a woman who'd do whatever it took to be left alone. I put the book on the mat inside the screen door, just where a hand could find it without a foot crossing my line. I turned the lamp off. I turned Martin toward the window as if he could witness for me. At 8:57, the neighborhood went the way neighborhoods do when supper dishes are done. TVs low, dogs doing last rounds, a bus wheezing 3 streets over. My phone was a quiet weight in my pocket. Miss Renee sat on her couch with the doorbell camera on her lap, whispering, "Come on," like a prayer and a dare. Miles had his laptop open like a stage light waiting on the first cue. At 9:06, a scooter's thin whine cut across the slow hum of crickets. A rider rolled up in a black hoodie and a cap pulled low, the kind of look men wear when they want to be invisible and do nothing but become a shape people remember. He stopped short of the driveway, killed the engine, and walked the last 10 steps with his head tilted toward the porch, not the street. He knew where our eyes were. He didn't reach for the handle. He slid 2 fingers under the screen and lifted like he'd practiced that exact gesture. He took the book with a care that made something ugly tighten under my ribs, like he loved what didn't belong to him. He tucked it into a courier bag across his chest and stepped back. My phone breathed once. Bell. "Go," Diaz whispered into the little mic pinned at her collar. The sedan down the block woke without a headlight flash. The delivery truck coughed like a long-delayed start and rolled forward 2 yards, just enough to make the rider glance up. He did the math fast, distance, weight, angles, and spun. It wasn't a rookie spin. He'd practiced this, too. He almost got away. He would have, if not for one small, silly, perfectly human thing. When he swung his leg over the scooter, his bag slipped, and he grabbed for it, not the throttle. For a second, his balance and his greed fought in the air. Greed won the grab, balance lost the scooter. The back wheel kissed the curb, and the bike slapped down with a sound so sharp, Ms. Renee yelped. He jumped, tried to run, and the book tumbled, skidding across my walk like a green fish. He scooped it, impressive hands fast, bolted, and then ran into something he didn't plan, the low chain between my lemon tree and the post where I tie my garbage cans. It hit him mid-shin. He went forward hard and fast and smacked his shoulder on the mailbox dent the snowplow gave me last winter. 2 officers closed the space like hands coming together for grace. The rider thrashed once, twice, then folded. Diaz walked up, calm as a Sunday, and toed the edge of the green book with her shoe. "Bag," she said. Her partner lifted it, opened it, and slid out not just my decoy, but 6 flat envelopes clipped together with rubber bands and a laminate badge that said, "Safe Seniors, Volunteer," in block letters. The hood came back. Not the man in the gray cap, not Nate. A woman, mid-30s, eyes quick and tired, looked up at Diaz like a kid at a teacher who's seen her cheat twice already. There was no mask. There was a mouth, and I knew it when I saw it. Not the face, not the name. The mouth. The voice from the text. The kind that doesn't get loud to make you feel small. It just picks a sentence and sets it on your table like a knife. "We know about the cookbooks." She cut her eyes to me. "You didn't have to bring cops into it, Auntie," she said, soft and sour at once. "We were just going to even it." "Even what?" I asked, because I truly wanted to hear the shape of her answer. "World's heavy," she said, as if that were a math proof. "Folks like you got habits. We just follow them." Diaz read her rights in the same voice she'd used to ask me about recipes. The woman's bag held more than envelopes, a ring of flat keys filed thin, a phone with the same VoIP app Diaz had circled on the printout at the station, and a folded handout with a list that made my throat pinch. Kitchen, cookbooks, pantry, flour bin, bathroom, ceiling tile, bedroom, hem of curtain. It was a hymn book for stealing. I stood there with the cool night on my skin, while Ms. Renee cried angry tears into her robe pocket, and Miles blew out a breath that sounded like a boy remembering he is also a man. The scooter lay on its side like a horse, done running. Martin rustled his leaves because he will rustle at any little air. "Who runs you?" Diaz asked the woman as they guided her toward the car. She pressed her lips thin. "We don't run, we tied." Then she glanced at me again, and something small, regret, pride, I couldn't name it, flickered in her face. "Green book's always a tell," she added, almost conversational. "Church ladies keep the keys where the casseroles live." I could have told her about my mama, about order, about hiding where life hums. I said nothing. Some lessons have to sit in a person's pocket a while before they get heavy enough to notice. Back inside, the house smelled like cornbread, because I'd baked earlier and because I needed the air to be mine. Diaz sat at my table and clicked her pen. "This isn't all of them," she said. "She's not the top, but she's the voice that texted you, and with her phone, we'll pull the thread." I looked at the green book sitting innocent as a potluck dish in front of me. I thought of the magnet on my fridge, the vests, the clipboard, the way a stranger stroked a spine and called it memory. I thought of the message that told me not to be cute, and I thought of Nate, whose neatness had finally given him away. "You're going to ask me if I want to press every charge," I said. Diaz nodded. "I do," I said. And then, because a woman can be more than one thing at a time, I added, "And I want to sit in the courtroom and hear what name D. Keys says when someone asks him who he prays to at night." Diaz's mouth quirked. "You'll get your seat," she said, "and your money." "Money's just paper," I said, surprising myself. "Habit is where the real wealth lives." I ran a finger down the green spine and then pushed the book away. I'll be changing some of mine. My phone buzzed on the table and every shoulder in the room twitched. It wasn't a threat. It was a calendar reminder I'd set years ago that pops up every night at 10. Water Martin. I laughed. A quick, clean sound. Because sometimes the only way to stop a night from swallowing you is to do the small, right thing you would have done anyway. I fed my plant 2 ice cubes. I turned him toward the light he loves, even though it was dark outside. I put the kettle on because mint tea belongs to me and not to fear. And while the water heated, I wrote a new list on a fresh page in my blue folder. Change locks. Change habits. Keep heart. Let truth finish what it started. 3 days after they booked Nate, a bright little flyer on my front door told me who had really been in my kitchen. Safe seniors. Home check. Free smoke alarms and kitchen safety tips, it said. Same green as my church cookbook. The corner was folded, the way the clipboard man had folded it months back when he tapped that spine and smiled like memory. I didn't touch the paper. I called Officer Diaz and said, they came back to see if I still sing the same song. At the precinct, Diaz slid a folder across to me. Your scooter woman talked, she said. Not much, but enough to tune our ears. The ring called itself Choir. They had parts, scouts in city vests who checked homes, sopranos, smooth men who earned trust, tenors, fast hands who picked up cash and keys, altos. Over all of them was the one texting from the dark, Conductor. The gray-cap clipboard man, a deacon in name only, Dennis Keys, they thought. D. Keys. No church we could find had him on a roll, but he ran the volunteer lists, printed magnets, assigned routes. The woman with the scooter carried a bag full of laminated badges, real-looking, all wrong. How did they pick me? I asked, though a part of me already knew. Diaz turned her screen. In a chat labeled Choir, the unknown number had sent little notes with my life wrapped inside them. Older woman, likes order. Cookbooks confirmed, lemon tree by east window. I wanted to scrub my phone and my own memory with the same sponge. Nobody broke in first. They were invited by a flyer, a vest, a clipboard, a voice that sounded like help. They've got a community safety check at the senior center tomorrow, Diaz said. We'll be there. You don't have to go. I looked at the green flyer, shiny as a lie. I'm a member, I said. If a song is about me, I want to hear the chorus. The senior center smelled like coffee and bingo paper. Folding chairs made neat rows. 2 young men in bright vests adjusted a banner and smiled the way customer service smiles do, right at your worry. The gray cap sat on the table with a stack of clipboards. My hands went cold and calm at the same time. Morning, ma'am, said a man I recognized without knowing his name, the one who had tapped my cookbook and praised casseroles. He still wore that clean, steady look. If he had a conscience, he'd trained it to nap in public. You did my house last winter, I said. Everything still safe? Always, he said, his eyes warming like toast. We love to see familiar faces. He rocked the clipboard in his palm like it might start singing. Diaz, plainclothes today, browsed the table at the next booth like a woman comparing pamphlets on shingles and flu shots. Miles stood by the water cooler, pretending to play with his phone and actually taking pictures of badges. The room filled with our people, ladies from church, with purses like fortresses, men who still wore their work caps though nobody was clocking them anymore. They came for batteries and free nightlights. They came for kindness that looked official. When the presentation ended, the gray cap man called names off a sheet. Home checks available this afternoon. Ms. Carter, Mr. Wilson, Ms. Walker. It was a chorus, all right. You could hear the rhythm under it. Kitchen, bath, bedroom, repeat. He looked up and met my eyes like we were old friends. "Ms. May," he said, smiling, "we can take yours now if you like." "Nah," I said, letting my voice go lazy as summer. "I've got my grandson fixing things at the house. Maybe next week." "Of course," he said, a flicker skimming his face. People like him want the yes right now. Next week is a door closing softer than they can stand. He moved on. Diaz lifted one finger by her side. The signal. 2 officers by the door tightened their shoulders in a way you don't notice unless you've watched men get ready to stand up slow. The gray cap man set his clipboard down to help an older gentleman with the sign-up. His vest opened for a second, and I saw the flat of keys hung inside, filed thin, quiet as knives. "Dennis Keys," Diaz said, sweet as a librarian. "Could we chat a second?" He blinked. "About permits," she said lightly. "You know how paperwork is. We've got a couple missing signatures." He tried to hand the clipboard off. The young man beside him took it and slid toward the back door like a fish seeing a shadow. Officer number 2 stepped into the doorway with a yawn, which is a better wall than a shout. The gray cap man didn't run. Running is a confession. He chose something worse. He smiled bigger. "Happy to help," he said. His eyes flicked once to the table edge where the cap sat. A tell, clean as a bell. They walked him to a side room. Diaz asked a simple question first. "What church you deacon at, Mr. Keys?" He named one across town that I knew. Only problem, their deacons are all women right now. He had not done that homework. He tripped, and you could hear the toe catch. The second question was shorter. "Who's the conductor?" He laughed and spread his hands like a man showing he's unarmed. "That's the trick, baby. They never bring the gun into the bank. They keep it in the car." Back at the precinct, his phone showed us a map, not to his home, to a place near the river where storage units sit in neat blue rows like quiet books. A judge gave Diaz the paper she needed. We stood in the wind while a locksmith did clean work. When the door rolled up, I saw an aisle of vests hung on pegs, bins labeled like pantry shelves, magnets, clipboards, laminates, phones in a tub, and a bulletin board with a black marker schedule that made my stomach crawl. Set list: Mon, Wilson, pantry, 2, Carter, bath tile, Wed, May, cookbook, Thu, Hughes, curtain hem. I touched my name with one finger and then pulled my hand back like I'd touched a stove. The dates lined up with my mint tea night and the day Nate first offered soup. It hadn't been cute fate. It had been rehearsal. On a crate sat a hymn book. "Lift every voice and sing" was on the open page. A joke or a dare. I couldn't tell which. Miles, who has too much respect to touch what's not his, pointed to the margin where someone had written a little note in pencil. "Conductor, new number." He took a picture. Diaz's partner bagged the book like it was glass. We thought we were done. We weren't. A tiny red light blinked in the corner. Motion camera. It had been watching the blue door long before we opened it. Diaz found the receiver in a shoebox, a screen with a smug little pause button. "Let's see who loves this closet," she said, and tapped play. The last 3 visitors were the scooter woman, the young vest from the center, and our gray cap man. Before them, a pair I knew without knowing their names, a woman in a church dress with a scarf tied just so, and a tall man with a limp you'd think a thief would have fixed before he built a career. The woman's face tilted right at the lens as she hung a fresh row of magnets. You could read the curl of her mouth, efficient, satisfied, late for something. On her wrist, a bracelet with a tiny treble clef. Music, right there. Choir wasn't just a joke, it was an address. Diaz exhaled. "Hello, ma'am," she said to the recorded woman like they were meeting in line for communion. "We've been waiting to hear your song. We pulled every thread. The volunteer program website was a glossy fake riding on a free template, registered to a P.O. box. The number that scolded me when I wasn't cute bounced through 3 apps and landed at a strip mall mailbox store rented by a woman who called herself Mrs. Halley at the center and Miss Hall at the storage unit. The limp man owned a tiny LLC that sold safety materials to nobody. That night, I found a note taped under my porch rail, like a coward had stooped without kneeling. It was short, in blue-black ink like mine. "You got your money. Sit this out, Auntie." No signature, just a little drawn lemon, like a line thrown from a boat to a woman they thought would drown. They had been closer to me than my own temper. They had listened to what I named and what I didn't. They expected fear to tuck me in. I slept on the couch with the lamp on low, not because I was scared, but because I wanted to see the shape of my own house at 3 a.m. and make sure it still belonged to me. Martin's leaves made that small water sound they make when the air moves. I put 2 ice cubes at his roots and whispered, "We're here." I wrote a list on the pad: change locks, call church, tell ladies, ask banker about workshops for seniors, and I underlined tell ladies 3 times. If they made songs about our habits, we would write new ones. Morning brought a strange quiet. Even the birds sounded like they were listening. Diaz called at 8. "We've got warrants for the box owners and the storage lease. We'll pick them up at the center before lunch." She paused, then added, "Nate wants to talk. Says he has something you should hear." I didn't want to hear anything from that mouth, but I went. Because when somebody who hurt you asks for a table, sometimes you sit, not to feed him, but to take the knife back. He looked smaller without the tie. Jail does that to a man, strips away costume. He didn't ask how I was. He didn't plead. He just looked at the tabletop and spoke like a student repeating a lesson he should have learned years ago and didn't. "They watch for women like you," he said. "Neat houses, pride in the little things, church on the calendar, family pictures at angles that don't change." He lifted his eyes. "I liked you. Doesn't matter. I still did it. The man with the clipboard lines us up and tells us what to notice, and the conductor tells us where to stand and when to bow." "Who is she?" I asked. He shook his head once. "Never got a name, only a sound. She'd hum before she talked, a hymn sometimes, or that other one, Summertime. Like the room was hers and we were just furniture." He swallowed. "She said you'd fold if they tugged the right thread." I pushed my chair back, slow enough for the scrape to speak. "She doesn't own my threads," I said. "I do." I walked out into a day that felt new because I said it was. At noon, Diaz called again. "We have them," she said simply. The woman with the treble clef bracelet had been at the center setting up another clinic. The limp man stood by the door with keys on a ring easy as breath. They didn't run. People who build rooms out of other people's fear always think the walls will hold for them too. On my way home, I stopped by the church hall and asked for 5 minutes after Bible study. The ladies looked up, purses on laps like shields polished by years. I told them everything, not to scare them, but to move fear where it belongs, out of the shadows and into the light where we can step around it. I told them about magnets and vests and cookbooks and habits. I held up the green spine and said, "This is not a sin. It's a story. We get to rewrite it." Ms. Hattie from the 3rd pew said, "They won't catch me with no casserole book." And everybody laughed, a good laugh that shook the room's dust loose. That night, my doorbell rang. I didn't open it. I checked the camera. On the mat sat a small brown box with no return address. I called Diaz. "Don't touch it," she said. "The bomb squad is all drama on TV and all patience in life." They x-rayed, opened, and held up what was inside. My original church cookbook, the tape on the spine peeled and replaced. No note, just a scrap of piano sheet tucked at page 146. The tune was Blessed Assurance. I stood in my doorway and let the night air wash my face. Assurance isn't blind. It's a choice you make with your eyes open. I wasn't done asking questions. I wanted to know how many houses were on that set list, how many ladies had lifted their screen door for a kindness that wore a vest. I wanted to know how to make a flyer that told the truth louder than theirs. But here's what I did know. The conductor had finally dropped her baton. It wasn't a confession. It was a tell. She wanted me to feel seen. She forgot that seeing goes both ways. I turned off the porch light myself, not because a text told me to, but because the moon was full as a silver plate and I wanted my lemon tree to drink it. I set the green book on the table and made mint tea. I wrote a new list: teach, test, trust, slow. And as the kettle sang, I thought about tomorrow and the day after and the long, steady way truth keeps time when you let it lead. I didn't expect the same hymn my mother hummed while shelling peas to be the rope that tied them all together. Blessed Assurance was tucked into my returned cookbook like a dare, and it turned out to be their fingerprint. In the end, the choir fell apart, not with shouting, but with small proofs held to light, serial numbers lined like stitches, a storage unit camera that never blinked, a bracelet shaped like a treble clef, and a voice that always hummed before it ordered harm. Court is not a movie. It's a hallway of waiting and a room of paper. Still, there were moments that struck like bells. The conductor walked in a neat teal scarf, the treble clef winking every time she moved her wrist. She didn't look at me. She looked at the judge like rules were furniture she knew how to move. The prosecutor laid it out simple. The fake Safe Seniors program, the printed magnets, the roots, the badged vests, the set list on a board, Mon, pantry, 2, bathroom tile, wed, cookbook. They played the storage unit footage, the gray cap man, the scooter woman, and then her, hanging fresh vests, placing clipboards, humming while she worked. When the video caught the tune and drifted it across the speakers, people in the gallery turned their heads without meaning to. It's funny how a song can carry a person's shape when they think they're safest. Nate took the stand with his shoulders smaller than his suit. He didn't try to polish what he'd done. He told the plan the way a man repeats a recipe he learned by heart. Scouts make lists, tenors earn trust, altos pick up the money, conductor keeps time. He said my name soft and then looked down. I liked her. I still did it, he said, which is the truest ugly sentence I've heard in a long time. His plea and his notes helped stitch the edges. He'll serve years and pay what he can. Later, a letter came, 2 pages, plain. I read it once, then I put it with the file. Forgiveness is a door I will open for myself, in my time. It will not be the key that lets him back in. The gray cap man, Dennis Keyes, tried to hide behind his smile. The treble clef woman tried to hide behind her careful words. Paper did not care. The judge listened to Officer Diaz read the set list, to the banker explain the marked bills, to Ms. Renee testify about the book taken off my porch. When the sheet music from page 146 came out of its evidence bag, I watched the conductor's mouth tighten. She had sent it to unnerve me. It told on her instead. The verdicts came steady. Guilty on fraud, conspiracy, burglary, elder targeting. The conductor's face did not crack. She bowed her head like a woman finally hearing the end of a song that always thought it could go on. After I went home and did small right things, I bought a new safe with a code that lives only where I live, in my head. I changed locks and routines, not to make my home a bunker, but to make my habits smarter than their maps. I kept my lemon tree, Martin, by the east window and turned him toward morning, because that's what he loves, and I won't let fear redecorate my life. I kept the church cookbook, but I let it retire from duty. It sits on a shelf now for what it is, a book full of casseroles and memories, not a hiding place. We didn't stop at my door. At church, I asked the ladies for 5 minutes, and they gave me 40. We started a know your home night. No scare talk, just good practice. Miles printed handouts on Wi-Fi, cameras, guest codes, and how to spot a real city ID. Officer Diaz came in her off hours and taught us how to say no, thank you, without apology. Ms. Hattie volunteered to be our vest tester. She'll ask every stranger 3 questions, and 2 of them will be about a church she pretends they both attend. We laughed and learned and passed plates. We decided we'd be each other's porch lights when the power flickers. On the last day of court, when the conductor was taken away, she glanced back. No words, just that tiny hum under her breath, a habit she couldn't hush. It wasn't blessed assurance this time. It was nothing I could name. I didn't answer with a look or a sound. I've learned the difference between being seen and being watched. One is love, the other is inventory. I choose the first. So, here is my ending, plain as bread, and to me, just as good. I still open my door, but slower. I still offer tea, but with both eyes open. I still believe in help, but I want to see the paperwork, and I'm not scared to call and check. I keep the towels a little crooked so they dry, the spoons in their same drawer, the plant turned to the sun. Order is still my peace. Wisdom is now my lock. If this story sat with you, if it made you check your shelf or smile at a small habit that keeps you safe, stay with us. Tap subscribe, hit the like, drop a comment. Tell me what detail gave you chills, what turn you didn't see coming, what habit you're going to change. There are more true feeling stories here about ordinary folks with complicated lives, and we're going to meet them with steady hearts. Life will hand you bad hours. It will. But we don't have to live inside them. We can face them with backbone and clear eyes, learn what they came to teach, and keep walking forward. As for me, I'll be on my porch in the morning, listening to the kettle sing, turning Martin toward the light, and letting the truth, not fear, keep time.